Caitlyn Clark, all right? The Indiana Fever star was named Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year earlier this week, and she took time to acknowledge that race played a role in her success.
I don't think I'm surprised. I'm curious to know who the other candidates were.
Caitlyn Clark is either the savior of the WNBA or its most polarizing figure, depending on who you ask.
Said Caitlyn Clark, rising tide lifts all boats. As much as her presence was maximized by the WNBA, you players could have done more to assist.
In just a few short months, she's done what the league couldn't achieve in over 2 decades. But with that kind of impact comes criticism. And Clark is no stranger to it. Every move she makes and every word she says seems to ignite a storm. Recently, her comments about white privilege turned into a feeding frenzy for critics who twisted her words out of context. But here's the thing. Stephen A. Smith wasn't going to let that slide.
I said it was stupid. Because when she came into the WNBA, for 22 plus years, they had been flying commercial. They were begging for chartered flights. She arrives there.
Stephen A., known for his sharp takes and fiery defenses, jumped into the conversation to shut down the noise and highlight the real issues. This isn't just about Clark's comments. It's about the systemic issues within the WNBA and how one player's rise has brought both progress and resentment to the forefront. The uproar began when Clark, fresh off being named Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year, chose to use her platform to make a statement that many wouldn't dare.
I've had really good perspective on everything that's kind of happened in my life, whether that's been good, whether that's been bad. And then obviously coming to the WNBA, like I've said, I feel like I've earned every single thing that's...
Some celebrated her honesty, seeing it as a moment of self-awareness and leadership, but not everyone. Critics, including WNBA legend Cheryl Swoops, twisted her words to paint a different narrative, one where Clark's acknowledgement was seen as undermining the contributions of Black players.
And my question is, like the criteria, is it based off of her performance on the court, which, yeah, she had a great year, or is it more about the impact?
Higher television ratings, higher attendance figures. Ladies and gentlemen, that doesn't come courtesy of a league. It comes courtesy of the players that play in the league. And in her case, she was the most popular, which means she could have helped your bottom line, which means you should have seen that from day one and maximized it, but you didn't.
Continuing to uplift them, I think, is very important, and that's something I'm very aware of.
The backlash wasn't just loud, it was personal. And that's where Stephen A. Smith stepped in. His defense of Clark wasn't just about her comments. It was about the bigger picture.
Who were clearly distant and dismissive of her.
Let's rewind for a second. For over 22 years, WNBA players endured the grind of flying commercial, delays, connections, cramped seats, while their NBA counterparts flew in comfort on chartered planes. Then, in what felt like a seismic shift, Clark joined the league. Within 2 weeks, chartered flights became the new norm. Coincidence? Stephen A. doesn't think so. A is undeniable. Attendance at Indiana Fever games has skyrocketed. TV ratings for women's basketball are through the roof. The WNBA draft on ABC and ESPN shattered records. These aren't just statistics. They're a sign that the league is finally gaining the momentum it has fought for decades to achieve. Stephen A. summed it up perfectly. Yet, the backlash against Clark reveals a deeper issue. Resentment comes from pain, and I understand that, Stephen A. said. He wasn't wrong. The WNBA has long been a battleground for recognition and resources. Black players built the league with grit and determination, laying its foundation despite systemic neglect. But while Stephen A. empathized with the frustration, he made one thing clear. Blaming Clark was a mistake. Equities others had fought against for years. Clark drawing more attention to the WNBA doesn't take away from legends like Cheryl Swoops, Lisa Leslie, or Dawn Staley. If anything, it amplifies their legacies, Stephen A. said. But why did it take so long for the WNBA to get basic things like chartered flights or increased media coverage? Stephen A. turned his focus to the league's leadership. The decision makers who denied these athletes proper compensation and working conditions for decades are the real problem, he argued. Why did it take a player like Clark to move the needle? He had a point. The struggles of the WNBA weren't about one player or one race. They were about systemic neglect. And now, with Clark's presence bringing new fans, more attention, and better resources, the league finally had an opportunity to grow. Think about it, Stephen A. urged. When Clark brings in new fans, they don't just watch her. They discover Aja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, and the pioneers who built this league. That's what progress looks like. Progress, as Stephen A. pointed out, doesn't always come in the package we expect. Sometimes it takes unlikely allies to push things forward. And when that happens, we have a choice. Embrace it or resist it. But the question remains, will the WNBA seize this moment or let unnecessary divisions hold it back? Clark's rise isn't just about her. It's about what she represents. A chance for women's basketball to finally get the respect it deserves. As Stephen A. put it, right now, women's basketball has a chance to do something extraordinary. Let's not waste it by fighting the wrong battles. Stephen A. wrapped up his defense of Clark with a powerful reminder. Years from now, people aren't going to remember this controversy, he said. They're going to remember how a player used her privilege to lift others up. That's what Caitlyn Clark is doing, and that's what we should be celebrating.